Hey guys, welcome back. So today I have a chit chat video for you guys. A lot of you were asking me if I still work at Victoria's Secret on my How I Got Hired at Victoria's Secret video, and I answered no, and you guys wanted to know why I'm not working there anymore. I never really told you guys the reason why, anywhere really. I just kind of stopped working there and that was that. So yes, this video is going to explain to you everything that led up to me deciding to leave the company. Just to let you guys know, Penelope just had her weekly bath, so she's not very happy right now. So if you hear her cage rattling, it's because she's acting out, pretty much just like a 2-year-old would act if they had to do something they didn't want to do. So yes, please excuse the rattling and noisiness that is my ferret. I want to first just start off by saying that it really wasn't anything in particular, like any one thing that really... Sorry. It really wasn't any like one thing in particular that made me leave. It was a mixture of a bunch of different things that really, in my opinion, should not be happening in a professional store such as Victoria's Secret. I tried to stick it out for as long as I possibly could. I was there for quite a few months actually, and I dealt with it for as long as I possibly could until the day I just had enough of it. So I also wanted to say that I'm not trying to bash the company in any sort of way. Everyone has their different experiences in different places. Like, I've had jobs that I've actually absolutely loved and I wish I had never left, but because I moved and relocated to something better and bigger, I had no option but to leave. I've met people who have actually had long, very happy careers with the company, and I think that's amazing. But you really have to be a certain kind of person to deal with retail jobs. Like, you have to be like headstrong to deal with that kind of stuff, and I am for the most part, but I'm that kind of person who really can't deal with a lot of things that happen in store, and I'll detail those for you guys in a couple minutes. The first problem I really had with the store manager actually had started to surface around about a week and a half after I started working there initially, and it was the fact that I had as soon as I got the job at Victoria's Secret, that's pretty much around the time I actually moved down here. I got the job right after I moved from New York, and I actually had just signed up for school as well. And so policy states that I have to let them know when I'm going to school, like what my schedule is, when I'm going to be able to work, when I can't work, all that kind of stuff. About a week after I initially started working there, I had brought in my school schedule, and when I first got hired, I told them, and they wrote down in my little file thing that I was starting school the week after I started working. So they knew about it ahead of time, and they said it was no issue. They'd be happy to work with my schedule in school because they know how important education is. When it came time for me to start school, that's when a lot of problems started. I started school, like I said, the week after I started working there, and I was super excited about it. And I actually went to the school like the week before when I first got the job. I went to the school and requested a schedule for myself that I could give to them, and they can make copies of it. So they did make copies of it. They had it in the office, so they should have known exactly when I had school, like what hours and when I could be working. So I was trying to make it as easy for them as possible to schedule me on days when either I was off or for the hours that I was away from school, and I figured it would be like easy, piece of cake. The store manager, I don't know what her problem was. She from the jump was very like rude. She was a Hispanic lady, and I thought that because we were both Hispanic, we had no language barrier, but we were not allowed to speak in other languages other than English in the store, unless of course a customer asked in specifics to be spoken to in a Spanish language. So the manager herself barely spoke a lick of English. Like, you could barely understand what she was saying. So I would try my hardest to talk to her in Spanish, but even then she would just ignore me. She would never even talk to me. So when they scheduled me for Saturdays, and Saturdays I'm in the salon in school working all day from 9 to 4. I told them if I could have that entire day off, that would be wonderful, but if they needed me to close, I could do that. They said that it was no problem. They said it was excellent because they needed more closers anyways, so I was like, you know what, that's perfect, it works out. They started to schedule me from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. the exact hours I'm supposed to be in school, and they would call me when I never showed up because they would be like, where are you supposed to be working today? I'm like, no, I told you from the hours of 9 to 4 p.m. I am not supposed to be scheduled on that schedule. So that is your mess-up, not mine. And what drove me beyond nuts was the fact that she would sit and argue with me, telling me that I never brought my schedule in, even though my schedule has been the same schedule as it's been from the beginning. I have never had any changes, except for, of course, these past 2 weeks, to my schedule at all. It was very easy to go by. I can work in the mornings until late afternoon, and then as long as I was out by 6, I was open for the rest of the day. It was a pretty basic schedule, and I feel like it was so hard for her to really grasp that, and she had such a hard time like dealing with it, and I feel like it was a real problem with her, even though she's the main one who signed up on it. Like, the store manager was supposed to sign off on all schedules and all kind of notes like that, and she signed off on it. And then instead of telling me in a nice manner, you know, okay, well, it's my mess up, I'm sorry, you know, I didn't know that you were supposed to be at school, I must have misread everything, you know, you have a good day in school, we'll see you next shift. Instead of that, she would literally scream at me and yell at me and then chastise me on the phone, telling me that I need to come in or I want to have a write-up on my record, which to me was bullshit because, like I said, I gave her my schedule from the jump on my school schedule, and she should have known the days I should not be working, or at least the hours I shouldn't be working. She decided to make things hard on me, and I feel like she did it on purpose, really, to get me fired. I don't know why. I just had this really, pesky, bothersome feeling that it was honestly on purpose, because it happened for the next few months after I started working there. Like, I would always be scheduled from 9 to 4 in the afternoon on Saturdays when she knows damn well I'm not going to be there. So I felt like it was on purpose. Finally, I got to her and I said, listen, if you write me up for this, I will go to corporate, because this is not fair. You signed off on my hours, you said it was fine, I explained to you I can work anytime after 4 p.m., but I would like to have at least an hour to go home and get changed, eat dinner, and then go to work. I had no problem working the night shifts. I loved closing because my favorite people worked during the night shift a lot of the time. And she was ballistic. She went nuts about it. Like, she was not happy at all with the fact that I was not going to work Saturdays. But she tried her hardest to get me to work Saturdays, and like I said, I was not going to miss school. I'm not going to mess up my career, my future, because she doesn't understand how to read, clearly know how to read a schedule. And she said, oh fine, just change your availability. I'm like, well, my availability should not be changed because it's been the same thing it's been the entire time. I asked for the hours from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. on Saturdays off, and then during the week I'm able to work anywhere from really early up until around 4 p.m. That gives me an hour and a half to eat and be ready for school later on that night. I thought my schedule was pretty easy to work with, but once again, we are back to square one, and she's yelling at me and screaming at me, saying that it should have never been accepted, that she should have never signed off on it. I'm like, well, you did, and it's not my fault, so it's like, what am I supposed to do? Anywho, she told me to change my availability, which I was like, okay, and it ended up being the same exact schedule that I gave to her the first time she signed off on. And when I turned it in for approval, she rejected it. And I was like, what the hell? The second thing that really pushed me to really actually leave the company was the fact that there was a couple of times where I would work maybe an hour, maybe 2 hours after I was scheduled to get off. And I never really minded, and it was mainly during resets at the store. Resets at the store are actually very busy time. We're going through the entire store, changing all the mannequins into brand new outfits, changing the signs, changing the tables, putting new product out. It's a very busy day, and it's normally on a Sunday, and we go in at like 5 o'clock in the morning, and then I sometimes do not leave till 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And I was beat. Like, I was so tired on those shifts, but I didn't mind because it was extra money. Sorry again. There was more times than not where I would stay after about maybe an hour and a half up to 2 hours, and I was promised that I would be given overtime, because more than half the time I would be scheduled for 30+ hours, and the hours that I worked afterwards should have been considered overtime, and that's what they told me. They explained to me it was supposed to be overtime, and if it wasn't overtime, it would still just be extra money on my check, which I was very happy about. Back then, I was like, oh my god, it's exciting, it's more money. It made me happy to do things like that, because I knew I was going to get reimbursed for it, and I was being recognized for the extra work I was putting in at the job. When it came time to getting paid, obviously I would request an email paycheck or pay stub, And I did that because I was able to put them on file in a folder in my computer that I keep locked with all my past pay stubs. So I have all my pay stubs from my first job until now. Like, I keep this stuff on lock. I make sure I keep this stuff on lock. So I do that for a reason, and then I always request at least one paper copy that I can put in my binder that I keep back here in this area here. So I would check my pay stubs for the extra hours, and they would never show up. So the first week she told me it was because I was new, all that kind of stuff, and I was like, you know what, understandable, new week, next week it'll be on there, it'll be fine. And she said the same thing, next week it'll be there, you'll be paid, don't worry about it. So I would check the next week's, and the next week's, and the next week's, and it would never show up. So I was doing hours and working hours, like overtime, that I was never getting paid for, and they would have me come in for these shifts that were so dumb. And it was normally for like 2-3 hours, maybe 4-hour shifts, like really small shifts that made absolutely no sense. And they told me that they would tack on those hours onto my longest shift, so I would get paid for that long day. And I was like, you know what, something does not seem right to me. I started to realize, like, I would literally write on my schedule and on the pay stubs, my physical pay stubs, what hours I worked overtime or what couple hours I covered shifts, all that kind of stuff. And I would make sure I had record of it, and because I clocked into the store during those shifts, there was one time I didn't, and I wrote it down still, and I covered my ass in the end, because they told me not to. Because I had all this, like, literal proof on my pay stubs, I was able to get all that reimbursed to me, and they were not happy with me at the end. Actually, I caused a huge fight with me in the company, and they were not happy with me at all that I went after the wages that they were supposed to have paid me initially. If they had paid me the wages in the beginning for the extra work that I've done, I wouldn't care. And honestly, if they had me stay for like 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes after, I wouldn't give a shit. But these are like 2-3 hours after I'm supposed to be gone. I would stay after and never get paid for them. The next reason I decided to leave was because I felt like the manager herself was very racist, and being somebody who is so against that kind of thing, it was very hard for me to bite my tongue a lot of the times, but I did because it was not, to me, there were some instances where it just wasn't worth it because she really wasn't trying to make a scene about things. But there was this one time in particular where she really pissed me off. I was working the closing shift one night on Sunday, and she happened to be there, her last hour there, and I had just gotten there. And I was behind the register, and she pulled me off the register to go and monitor the store. And she walked around with me once, and then we split ways in the pink section of the store. And so she, about 5 minutes later, called me on the headset again and told me that a group of negritas came into the store, and I needed to go follow the negritas. Basically, she was telling me to go follow the black girls who walked in the store. There was a group of black girls who walked in the store, and when I went to go ask them, they seemed like they were fine. There was no issue. But she literally had me follow them. She's like, do not lose sight of them. Don't lose sight of them at all. And she would, like, murmur these really racist things, like it's always the black people stealing things. They always steal things. It's always the panties they're going after, or trying to get something for free. All the Haitians trying to get something for free. And I would just turn off my mic. Like, it made me so mad. And I would stay with them, but they actually wanted me to stay with them. They would ask me for different ideas and different bras they should get. They would ask me, again, they would ask me for help, and I had no issue helping them. And in the end, after I was done with them, they were all cashed out, ready to go. They gave me nothing but positive reviews to her, and they were so nice to her. She really had no reason to act that nasty towards them and say such nasty things. And the things that she said was just very bullshit. It was just such bullshit to me. And so I was like, there's no way I can work with someone who was so nasty and racist towards people for no fucking reason. Really, the last straw that broke the camel's back was the fact that the store manager would tell me to do things, and I would do them happily. Like, I had no problem taking orders. That's not my issue. But as soon as I started doing them, about 5, maybe 10 minutes after I started doing them, she would call me over my little headset and ask me where I was, and I would meet up with her in whatever section of the store she was in, and she would chastise me for doing exactly what she said. after the first time, I was like, you know what, I must have done something wrong. Maybe she saw my work that I just did in another room and she didn't like it and she got mad at me. But after like the 4th or 5th time of this happening like consecutively, I grew tired of it, and I was like, this is ridiculous. Why am I getting yelled at for doing exactly what she told me to do, exactly the way she told me to do it? Because after the first time, I explained to her, I was like, you know what, if you want me to do something a certain way, please show me maybe 1 or 2 times exactly how you do it, and I will do it that way for you. I would always go out of my way to make sure that I did things exactly the way she wanted it done. I just decided, I was like, I remember one time she reamed me out in front of customers, and I opened my mouth to say something and I closed it because I knew it was a waste of my time, it was a waste of my breath. I was only gonna let things get to me that I really shouldn't be getting really so emotional about. But she was talking to me, so I walked away from her. I walked away, walked to the back, got my stuff, and walked out, and that was the last day that I was there. She called me back into the store to talk to me. She said she wanted to calmly talk to me, and I explained to her that I was not going to ever work there again, that I was tired of her chastising me and treating not only myself, but other people who I worked with like shit. She would literally yell at all of us in front of customers and make things so awkward, to the point where customers would ask for help just to ask us what happened and tell us, you know, you don't deserve that. Especially if customers are telling us that we don't deserve to be treated like that, especially that should be a red flag that you should not obviously be doing what you're doing. And I just got tired of it, and so I was like, you know what, I'm on a warpath. So I went after all the wages I was not reimbursed for, the extra hours, went after that, and I made sure that I told corporate about the shitty treatment of the workers at that store in particular. Now, I'm gonna say this now, I loved everyone I worked with except the actual store manager. She was a complete bitch to me and everybody else in the store, and she had multiple complaints on file with corporate. So why she was still there, I have honestly no idea. To see her track record and to hear from other people, especially the other managers, like the other managers would come to me and tell me, you know, don't let her get to you, she's really not supposed to be here, she's not really fit to be a manager. And unbeknownst to me, she was a manager who was thrown into the job. She was only a crew member. She was never a manager before. She was just thrown into the role. And then when she got into the role of being the actual store manager, she became a dictator and decided that she could yell at anybody and get away with everything. And that was why I ultimately decided to leave. For my sanity and to keep my record clean, I left. I mean, like I said, retail takes a special kind of person, and for me, I'm very opinionated about a lot of things, and I will always say what's on my mind, regardless of the fact if it's needed or not. And it was so hard for me to just sit there and take that abuse, so to speak, to be yelled at in front of customers and be demeaned in front of them and told different things, and just, it was really the most worst experience I had in a job. So if you work there and you enjoy it, clearly you are a much stronger person than me at keeping your mouth shut and, you know, being able to deal with people. But clearly I don't have that kind of patience for people, and I don't take things like that lightly, especially being disrespected in front of people. It bothers me. It's a big pet peeve of mine. But for me, it was probably the worst experience I've ever had in a job. That is why I decided to leave Victoria's Secret. So yes, if you have any more questions, leave them down below. But until next time, I'll see you guys later. Thanks for watching, guys. Bye.